Hello, this is Lemsko. This time I show you a little bit of basics in energy fighting. Situation is we have a massive energy advantage over two opponents which are flying low. Unfortunately, they are also flying close to their airfield. So that didn't hinder me to just do lazy vertical energy fighting, just to show the principle. As you have seen, I dove on him. I didn't shoot because I lost sight of him through the reflector sight and the propeller. I will talk about that later. So here we have a massive speed difference in the merge. Both guys are low. I zoomed up. I turned when I was slow. And now I have a lot of space to pick up speed. All my attacks when I get into gun range are done with at least 600 kilometers on the tachometer. You see, I rode towards the second P40. I tried to lurk him into the pure vertical. This only works if you have a significant speed advantage over the guy following you. Don't try that if your speed difference is lower than 150 kilometers per hour. You see, I dive on the stage. Unfortunately, I miss. I pull out. It's a relative low G pull out. Maybe you have seen it in the tachometer. Even in the pull out, I gain slowly speed. And I go again vertical. I think here I lost sight of them for a moment. So I just dive through the combat area. This will make sure they are on your 6 again, and you have it much easier to find them. And still in that dive we were way above 600 kilometers per hour. So easy to go vertical again. And place yourself for the next attack run. 2 targets to choose. Here they are both low on energy and both are following me. I get some hits on them, no damage. I roll towards the upper guy. I pass him. I go vertical. Easily 200 to 300 kilometers faster than him. I'm never even in gun range for them. I'm completely untouchable. I could do that all day long, as long as I have fuel in the plane. If you have a massive energy advantage from the beginning, it's of course extremely easy to keep that energy advantage. Every time one of them regains some energy, and believe me, he worked hard for that, you make a pass on him and force him to pay all the money he just painfully earned back and put it onto the gambling table again. Here the angle is too steep for an attack for me, so I switch target. He starts to pull hard. I don't even try to follow that. I have all the time of the world if I wouldn't be close to the airfield. So don't do as I do, do as I say. You might wonder when I go pure vertical that I don't use the classical hammerhead move. I roll over. I can watch the battlefield better. It's not that disorientating for a short moment. And believe me, the graphic engine isn't up for that style of fighting. Here in the video everything looks pretty. Of course, with the compression effects it's not comparable to what you see on the screen. These are my video settings. When I grab videos in my replays, there I have trees set to maximum. Nearly everything else is set to maximum. When I fly, I use complete different settings. And the most important for spotting against the ground is disable the trees. Well, you basically fly a combat flight simulator with amazing graphics and the whole landscape turned into Google Maps. But at least when they are dots, you can clearly follow them over forest regions. Also city regions. With the trees you also put the buildings onto minimum settings. It's much easier to follow dots. There's still a problem when the plane turns into an actual aircraft. At long distance it always will have a small resolution version of the default camouflage of the plane. And they lack contrast against the ground. Here I can do it in ranges, I think it's around 2 kilometers. Sometimes when I do my reversals, they were easy because with zooming out they turned into dot. Zooming in, I had a hard time looking for them again. So you constantly need to change your viewing angle to switch between the two systems airplanes are rendered. You also need to use the post-FX settings still. Most important is sharpening. Unfortunately it sharpens, well, it doesn't really sharpen, it offsets a layer that creates some kind of halo around the plane. Not that visible against the ground textures, but it makes them much easier to spot against the sky, well, where we didn't really had a problem from the beginning. I also manipulated my graphic card driver directly. Make sure when you do that I achieve best results with turning off line gamma correction for anti-aliasing transparent or objects with opacity. And I also reduced the texture size, so the game engine switches earlier to lower resolution images to wash out the textures a little bit more, so the dot or aircraft becomes a little bit more sharpened against the background. It's still painfully hard to do this style of fighting. The lack of contrast against the background is a pain, especially if you need to look through glass layers. And this could mean when you look through the front, you're looking up to 3 individual objects with transparent textures with opacity in, and every layer reduces the even lacking contrast in the game engine, so objects can completely blend into the background. Well, the workaround is reduce the graphic settings, make the game look ugly, then these style of fights are possible. Still hard to do, to keep track all the time. But as you see, it's manageable. Well, if you do these stunts against multiple enemies, you need to have a very, very good situational awareness and three-dimensional feeling of the space around you. When I did my reversals on the top, as I rolled over and didn't do the classical hammerheads, this always gives me an overview over the map in the inverted position, and I can plan my exit route and where I have to go to put the other guy a little bit under pressure or bait him or whatever. But I definitely want to deny him again horizontal maneuvering space. And you see, with that speed advantage, it's completely futile to follow such zoom. I mean, it's like in Star Wars. It's a trap. Well, if you want to check what you all can do to manipulate the graphic settings, best it would be looking into forum, into the FRB discussion subforum. There are a few threads exactly about that problem. Well, since we lack the contrast against the landscape, and with all the tweaking I did, I really didn't solve the problem. I mean, now the game looks ugly for me when I play it. Except the aircrafts, the clouds, sky, flag effects. But well, landscape looks like I'm back to early 2000. But at least my preferred style of fighting is possible. It's still a little bit too hard, and of course also you need to talk, explain and pictures your wingmans, what you're doing. You need to talk a lot more than you would need to in reality to give them a picture who of these dots or gray shapes, which all look the same, is you. I mean, even individual squad markings you don't see, I think, at around 400, 500 meters anymore. At 300 meters the game engine already switches to a lower level of detail model. Somehow the contrast against its environment needs to be corrected. Maybe by excluding player object materials from some environmental effects, or by producing some kind of halo like you can do with the post-FX, but since the post-FX filter overlays everything, including icons when you fly in an icon environment like the historical battles or arcade battles, it looks pretty silly. Maybe we could get the option, these post-FX filters only let them apply to player objects like planes, tanks later, because something needs to be done. In this form it's not a real simulation. You have much too less information for your eyes. You see way too less than in reality. Something needs to be done to make it enjoyable for every style of air combat, and not only for the turn fighters low over the ground. Thanks.